Welcome back to part 3 of our dedicated series on the Universal Encyclopedia of Scales. If you haven't seen parts 1 or 2, definitely check those out before you go any further. I'll put a link in the description down below, or you can click on this iCard right here. So now you can see how the intervallic formula describes one and only one scale, and how we can create modes by merely just cycling through it.
I think so. So from what I understand, a mode of a scale is just a permutation of the intervallic formula by moving the first interval and putting it at the end.
Right.
All right, what I don't get is why we can't use the intervallic formula to define a scale. I mean, all we have to do is assign a root to the intervallic formula and we have a scale, unless I'm missing something.
Sure, that's another way of defining a scale, but the only issue is that you're including an imposed order to the notes in the scale. So every time you have to define a scale, you'll need a specified order. Otherwise, it could not be a well-defined scale.
I don't see the issue with doing that. It works every time.
Yeah, you're right. But you don't need the order to define a scale, and that's an essential point I'm trying to make.
I don't see why.
Because it will limit or at least obscure your options when it comes to playing this scale and seeing it using other principles.
What do you mean?
Okay, let's look at the C major scale.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, with C as the designated root.
When we sort the notes ascending, as we find them on the piano starting on C, we get C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Then the intervallic formula is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. By looking at the intervallic formula, we can find a few properties of this scale. For example, there are two pair of notes that are only a half step apart. That could be an indication of how much tension there is in the scale, for example. We also see that there are no two notes that are more than a whole step apart, because there are no intervals bigger than a whole step between any two notes in the scale. If we cycle through the intervallic formula, we get all the modes of the major scale. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half is the major scale, which we can call it mode 1, also known as the source scale. Whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole is mode 2, Dorian. Half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, whole is mode 7, Locrian.
Beautiful, see what I mean? The intervallic formula is great. I don't see the problem in using it to define a scale.
Well, sure, you can deduce some properties by seeing the scale in that sorted intervallic formula sort of way. But you'll be missing a lot of other properties if that's all you're doing. Let me ask you this. How many perfect fifths are there in a major scale?
Hold on, why is this important? Why do I care how many perfect fifths there are in a major scale?
Well, consider this. After the perfect octave, the perfect fifth is the next interval in the overtone series. And after the perfect octave, the perfect fifth is the most consonant interval that there is in music. I assure you, quantifying the perfect fifth is something you really want to do when it comes to identifying a note set.
If you say so. All right, let me see. So we have C to G, G to D, D to A to E, E to B. There's a bunch.
Exactly. But can you see that represented in the intervallic formula?
Well, no, but I can still find them by looking at the notes in the scale.
Yeah, you can, but you're not going to do that by directly analyzing the intervallic formula. When we use our definition of what a scale is without the intervallic formula, we're free to use any criteria that we want to sort the notes of the scale, which is really cool because it exposes all these other interesting properties about the scale. Like, let's say we sort the notes using perfect fifths. And the best way to do this is to use the famous circle of fifths, in which we organize the pitch classes in a circle, where each pitch class is a perfect fifth above the previous one, clockwise. We assign the top note in the circle to the root of the scale, in our case, C. Then we add the notes in order, as in a clock, using perfect fifths. So we get C, G, D, A, B, B, F sharp, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, and F. Now let's mark the notes in the C scale. C, G, D, A, E, B, and F. And now let's draw a polygon, which we'll call a graph, by joining the notes as we find them clockwise. So that's the major scale's graph over the circle of fifths. And now it's so incredibly obvious that the major scale is built by using 6 consecutive perfect fifths. No wonder this is such an incredible scale. What's even better is that if we rotate the notes in the circle, leaving the graph fixed, we get the same major scale in different keys. So we rotate once counterclockwise, we get the note G on the top. The F goes out of the scale and the F sharp moves into the scale. That's why the G major scale has only one sharp, which is F sharp. If we rotate it once more, we get the D scale. The C moves out and the C sharp moves in. So D major has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Then A with 3 sharps, and E with 4, and so on. And the order in which these sharp notes start appearing in the different scales is exactly as the order we use to write the key signatures, which is also, again, the circle of fifths. If we move in the other direction, we get the flats. F has 1 flat, B flat has 2 flats, and so on. So, having organized the notes in a scale using different criteria from the one we used for the intervallic formula has given us an entire different perspective of the same exact scale.
It's actually pretty cool. I think I'm starting to see your point.
And there's more. First, remember that the top note is the root of the scale. So any scale represented as a graph over the circle of fifths must contain the top note. Don't forget, our definition of a scale is an unordered set of 2 or more notes with a designated root. So this is a scale, but this is not a scale. Now, if we rotate both the notes and the graph together, we will not change the notes in the scale, but we will change the root. This is exactly as when we cycle through the intervallic formula. So we're finding all the modes of the initial scale. So C major turns into G Mixolydian, then D Dorian, A Aeolian, E Phrygian, B Locrian, and then the graph will flip completely since there are no notes between B and F in the scale. This will give us F Lydian. Rotate it one more time, and then you get the C major scale again. So the graph never changed, and neither did the number of perfect fifths that we're dealing with. So we can clearly see how the intervallic content of the different modes is constant across all modes. The cool thing about using a graph is that it becomes obvious when 2 scales are related modes, because their graphs must be the same. They're just rotated in the circle. Here's the graph for the major pentatonic. By rotating the graph around the circle, we get all related modes of this scale. Always remember, the top note must be part of the graph. It's very easy to see that the major pentatonic has 5 modes.
That's pretty cool, but it was pretty obvious that the major pentatonic scale was going to have 5 modes because it has 5 notes, 1 mode for each note.
Actually, that's not true. There are scales out there that have less modes than notes. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next time. So, like, subscribe, comment down below, and definitely get the Universal Encyclopedia of Scales today so you can follow along with the series. Thanks for watching.